NASCAR has a new problem. Denny Hamlin won't stop winning. 3 straight wins changed everything. And what happened at Pocono may have started a title fight nobody in NASCAR can ignore anymore. Because this story is not just about one trophy, one finish, or one hot streak. It is about a veteran driver turning a strong season into a takeover, a points leader suddenly feeling pressure, and a garage now staring at one question that gets bigger every single week. Who is actually going to stop Denny Hamlin? If you want real NASCAR stories built on verified facts, smart analysis, and no fake drama, subscribe now, because this season is getting more dangerous, more complicated, and a lot more interesting with every race. Denny Hamlin did something at Pocono that he had never done before in his full-time Cup Series career. He won his 3rd straight race. Nashville, Michigan, Pocono. For a driver with one of the longest and most accomplished resumes in the sport, that alone would have been enough to dominate the conversation. But this was bigger than a win streak. This was Hamlin taking one of his best tracks and turning it into another statement. He won at Pocono for the 8th time, collected the 64th Cup Series win of his career, and moved into sole possession of 9th on the all-time wins list. ESPN Motorsport. And what makes that even more serious is this: Hamlin did not steal the race. He controlled it like a driver who knew exactly when the moment would come. He started on the pole, stayed in the fight all afternoon, managed the long runs, survived the strategy swings, and then took the lead for good late when Christopher Bell's Fuel Gamble ran out of road. By the checkered flag, Hamlin-Reddick was 2nd, William Byron was 3rd, and Hamlin had turned another major race into proof that this is not a lucky stretch. This is form. This is execution. This is a team operating at championship level. Motorsport NASCAR. The finishing margin matters too. Hamlin beat Reddick by 1.678 seconds, which does not sound massive until you remember what kind of race this was. This was a fuel strategy race. This was a track position race. This was one of those Pocono afternoons where one wrong call can bury a contender and one clean sequence can win the whole event. Hamlin's team got the sequence right, the driver got the timing right, and Reddick, despite finishing 2nd, still walked away knowing the big winner in the championship picture was the man in the number 11. Motorsport. Now keep this next detail in mind, because it turns a great day into a dangerous trend. After Pocono, Hamlin-Reddick was still leading the Cup standings, but the gap had been slashed to just 19 points. Not long before that, Reddick's advantage had been much larger. Suddenly, with 10 races left before the chase field was set, Hamlin was not chasing from a distance anymore. He was breathing right on the leader's neck. That changes the way every team meeting sounds, the way every pit call feels, and the way every mistake gets remembered. NASCAR Motorsport. Reddick understood that immediately. His reaction after the race said everything. He knew 2nd place was solid. He knew the points haul was not a disaster. But he also knew the worst possible outcome for his regular season lead was watching Hamlin win again. That is the kind of pressure that does not show up only in the standings. It shows up in how hard you push entries, how aggressive you get with strategy, and how quickly a calm season starts feeling unstable. ESPN. And here is where this story becomes bigger than a single driver. Toyota had won 10 of the first 16 Cup races of the season by that point. Joe Gibbs Racing alone had accounted for 5 of those wins. That is not a small edge. That is not a random cluster. That is a manufacturer and a team group consistently putting cars in position to control races, stack points, and force everybody else to play catch-up. When one camp keeps doing that, the rest of the field does not need a scandal to feel pressure. Dominance is enough. ESPN. That is why the smarter version of this story is not fake outrage. It is a harder question. What exactly has Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota doing this well, this often, on this many types of tracks? Because the evidence says this surge is not limited to one setup, one weekend, or one lucky strategy break. Hamlin won at Nashville. He backed it up at Michigan. Then he backed it up again at Pocono. Reddick had already opened the season by winning 4 of the first 6 races. This is not noise anymore. This is a pattern, and the garage knows it. Reddick's season is a huge part of why Hamlin's run feels so dramatic. Earlier in the year, Reddick looked almost untouchable. He won 4 of the first 6 races, And one of the most revealing wins came at Darlington, where his team battled through an alternator issue, a battery change, and the loss of his cool suit, yet still recovered to win. That kind of day tells the garage something important. It says speed is one thing, but confidence is something else entirely. And when both show up together, rivals start running out of explanations. Fox Sports. Kevin Harvick put that idea into words in a way that cut right to the center of the season. He pointed to stability, to Toyota's overall package, and to Reddick's growth as a leader. Then he said the line that really sticks with this whole story: confidence and speed are hard to beat. That applies to Reddick. It applies to 2311. And now it absolutely applies to Hamlin and the number 11 team too. Once a team starts expecting to win, everything looks different. The calls get cleaner. The pit stops get sharper. The driver becomes more patient because he knows the car will come back to him. That is what Hamlin looks like right now. Fox Sports. And if you think that only matters for race day, think again. This changes the championship psychology. Teams can handle losing to a great car once. They can even handle losing twice if they convince themselves it was a track-specific thing. But when the same network of cars keeps showing up at the front on intermediates, on strategy races, on high-speed tracks, and in situations where other teams are making mistakes, it begins to wear on the competition. Not because of rumor, because of repetition. That is why Pocono felt like a checkpoint in the season. It was the moment where Hamlin stopped being just another contender with momentum and became the driver everyone had to discuss first. Remember, this was already his fourth win of the season, not counting the non-points All-Star race. At 45 years old, still insisting he plans to retire after 2027, Hamlin is driving like a man who has found a late career gear that the rest of the field was not prepared for. He is not hanging on. He is dictating terms. ESPN. That is also what makes the Hamlin-Reddick storyline so fascinating. Tyler Reddick is not just another rival. He drives for 2311 Racing, the team co-owned by Hamlin and Michael Jordan. So every time Hamlin beats Reddick, the story gets more layered. The co-owner is hunting the driver leading the standings. The driver leading the standings is trying to hold off the veteran who helped build part of his competitive world. On paper, they are linked. On track, they are becoming the central fight of the season. And Pocono showed exactly how thin that line can be. Reddick did almost everything right. He recovered from the previous week's disappointment, executed a smart race, finished second, and still left with his advantage reduced. That is the cruel side of championship racing. A good day can still feel like a loss when the wrong person wins. Now let's talk about the race itself, because there was more going on under the surface than just the final margin. Christopher Bell, driving with a fractured left wrist suffered in the Michigan crash, nearly turned fuel strategy into the story of the day. He led 18 laps late, stayed out in hopes of stretching the run, and forced the entire field to calculate how aggressive they could afford to be. Bell eventually had to pit at the white flag and finish 26th, but his gamble mattered because it delayed the moment when Hamlin could fully control the ending. It also reminded everyone how much depth Joe Gibbs Racing had in that race, even with one of its top drivers managing injury. ESPN NASCAR. That Bell injury is worth remembering for another reason. NASCAR confirmed he had sustained a fractured left wrist at Michigan and was cleared to race at Pocono. So when you look at the bigger JGR picture, it gets even more impressive. Hamlin was winning. Bell was still finding ways to influence races while hurt. Chase Briscoe and Ty Gibbs were also factors in the broader team performance. This was not a one-car flash. It was an organization applying pressure from multiple angles. NASCAR Motorsport. And then came one of the most important facts in the whole conversation. Post-race inspection cleared Hamlin's number 11. The win was official. NASCAR's standard process also sent 6 other cars to the R&D Center for further evaluation, including the numbers 5, 7, 12, 17, 42, and 45. That matters because it removes the easy-lazy narrative. There was no announced penalty attached to Hamlin's car from Pocono. No public ruling flipped the result. No official finding erased the victory. If anyone wanted a shortcut explanation for the number 11 speed, Pocono did not provide it. NASCAR J-Ski. So if the cars are clearing inspection and the wins keep coming, the real pressure shifts back where it belongs, onto the rivals. Can Team Penske answer? Can Hendrick convert speed into cleaner finishes? Can Ford cut into Toyota's edge? Can Chevrolet stop giving away points on days when it has top 5 pace? Those are the real questions now, and they are harder to solve than a rumor headline. This is what separates great seasons from unforgettable ones. A great season gives you winners. An unforgettable season gives you a collision between momentum and legacy. Hamlin is now squarely in that zone. The win at Pocono came nearly 20 years to the date after his first career Cup victory, which also came at Pocono in June 2006. That kind of symmetry only makes a hot streak feel more powerful. The track where he first announced himself to NASCAR became the track where he reminded the entire sport that he is still one of the most dangerous closers in the garage. ESPN. And the history got even tighter. Hamlin's 3 straight wins placed him alongside Richard Petty, Bobby Allison, and Darrell Waltrip in a rare modern-era category. For a driver whose resume was already loaded with major victories, that kind of company changes how this stretch gets remembered. This was not just another summer heater. This was one of those runs that forces fans and rivals to ask whether they are watching the best version of Hamlin's career in real time. ESPN. And Hamlin himself leaned right into that idea. He said this may be the best his team has ever been. That is a serious statement from a driver with this many years, this many wins, and this much experience in top-tier equipment. It tells you the confidence inside that number 11 camp is not performative. It is built on what they are seeing every week. They believe they are showing up with a real shot to win every time the hauler opens. That belief is powerful because once a team truly trusts its pace, it becomes far more dangerous under pressure. ESPN. Now think about what came next on the schedule, because this is where the suspense gets real. NASCAR was heading to San Diego for the inaugural street race at Naval Base Coronado, the first NASCAR event ever held on an active military base. After that came Sonoma. 2 very different challenges. 2 weekends that could either extend Hamlin's surge or give Reddick a chance to reset the balance. That is why Pocono mattered so much. It did not end the story. It launched the next chapter under maximum pressure. AP News NASCAR. And road and street courses bring their own chaos. Reddick has road racing ability. Shane Van Gisbergen becomes a threat whenever the track turns technical. Bell's injured wrist suddenly matters more because of the shift-heavy nature of those events. Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski needed points. Drivers around the cut line were running out of room. That means even if Hamlin had the hottest car in the series, the environment around him was becoming more unstable, not less. Momentum helps, but it does not remove landmines. That is why the championship fight after Pocono felt so alive. The regular season leader was still Reddick, but the emotional center of the season had shifted to Hamlin. Reddick had the points. Hamlin had the heat. And when those 2 things belong to different drivers, every upcoming weekend feels like a pressure test. The other teams knew that too. William Byron's 3rd-place run at Pocono suggested Hendrick had some life. John Hunter Nemechek leading 42 laps and finishing 4th showed that Toyota's strength extended beyond just Hamlin and Reddick. Legacy Motor Club put 2 Toyotas in the top 6. Suddenly, this was not just a debate about one superstar. This was a manufacturer-wide signal that the balance of power had tilted harder than many expected. Motorsport ESPN. And that creates another layer of suspense for the rest of the season. Because if Toyota is this strong across multiple organizations, then the chase is no longer about stopping one car. It is about solving an ecosystem. You have Hamlin at JGR. You have Reddick at 2311. You have Bell capable of stealing races even while managing injury. You have supporting cars constantly affecting strategy, stage points, and race flow. When one camp can influence the front of the field with that many pieces, everybody else has to be nearly perfect. So what was the cleanest, most authentic takeaway from the entire Pocono weekend? It was not that NASCAR had confirmed some giant controversy. It had not. It was not that Hamlin's win came under a cloud. Officially, it did not. The real takeaway was simpler and probably more dangerous for the rest of the field. Denny Hamlin is winning with verified speed, a locked-in team, and a championship target that suddenly looks close enough to touch. That is a nightmare scenario for every rival because Hamlin does not need chaos to beat you right now. He can beat you on pace. He can beat you on experience. He can beat you by stretching a run longer, by pitting at the right moment, by managing dirty air better, by understanding Pocono's rhythm better than almost anyone who has ever raced there. And once a veteran reaches that state, the field usually discovers the problem before it discovers the answer. Here is what makes the next stretch so compelling. If Hamlin keeps winning, the conversation becomes historical. If Reddick stabilizes and protects the lead, the season becomes a battle between the sport's hottest veteran and one of its sharpest modern talents. If Bell heals and re-enters the win picture, the whole JGR side gets even stronger. If the road and street races scramble everything, then the regular season may turn into a weekly reversal nobody can predict. Every path forward is dramatic. Every path forward carries weight. And do not overlook the human side of it either. Hamlin is at the point in his career where every huge run feels like a statement against time. Drivers are supposed to get easier to read this late in the story. Hamlin has become harder to read because he looks more complete than ever. He still has the aggression when he needs it, but now it is paired with patience, race management, and a team that appears to understand exactly what kind of car he wants. That is why this moment matters. Pocono was not just win number 64. It was evidence. Evidence that Hamlin can build a streak. Evidence that Reddick's lead can be hunted down. Evidence that Toyota's edge was real. Evidence that the rest of the garage was heading into the summer with a serious problem on its hands. And the biggest twist of all might be this. The season leader after Pocono was still not the man who felt like the center of power. That was Hamlin. The scoreboard still said Reddick. The energy in the sport said Hamlin. And when those two forces move in opposite directions, something has to give. So as the season rolled forward from Pocono to San Diego and beyond, the real suspense was never about whether Hamlin had already made his point. He had. The suspense was whether anyone would answer it in time. Because once a driver starts winning like this, once the points gap tightens like this, once the history starts lining up with the present like this, the season stops feeling long. It starts feeling hunted. And right after Pocono, the hunter was Denny Hamlin.